Right, we are live. Yeah, we're live. Right, so this is going to be awkward actually. This is just a test to see how well streaming on TikTok can be done using different apps. So in this case, this is GtkRadiant. So this is an application for editing game levels for particular games, id Tech. So games essentially made by id Software before they changed to using the Unreal Engine. But I'm just testing this because I just need to go through some archived map objects. Hi Chazza. Just got to go through some archive map files before, well, some of them need to be released. I just need to check. Hey Bottle. Just need to check each file. So I have to open. So all of these have to be checked because I don't know what the source project is for the levels that we published for Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Hey Saul. So we have to go through each of these, and there's a lot of them, and check each one individually. Winding base for playing, no access found, and unrecoverable error has occurred. That better not shut me down. It has. Dang it! Let's try that again. Set everything up. X, Y. So this is the grid where you basically draw out shapes which you can then see in the 3D view or the camera view, like so. Whoop. Let's just whack a texture on that. Get out of the way. So that is now textured, and obviously you can edit. I say obviously, but you can add hey Darlo Spotter. You can add textures, your spirit files. Yep. Ice cool yet fiery. Maybe. But this allows you to, whoops. But it may not work properly because, how do you, was it escape? Yeah. So you just draw out shapes. So this is top front. So that's the top view, and then this is the z-axis. So this allows you to you basically draw out your shape, you can move it, and then use the camera. Yep. But there are all sorts of textures that you can apply. Escape. Hey Pepper, Sahara. So you create entire worlds with this. You can zoom in, scroll around. But anyway, so let's just open a new file. Open. No, we don't want to save. Hey Jones. So, got to go through all of these. 64 block map. Right, so a quick tip actually, whilst we're here. If you're going to be modeling content for, this doesn't have to be, in this case it's GtkRadiant, it doesn't have to be Radiant, but if you are unsure about how you're, so if you're using Unity or Unreal Editor Suite, if you're unsure about units of measurements or measurements in general, what you can do is just draw out a shape using the inbuilt tools. In this case, we're just dropping in a couple of blocks, but you draw them out to match the grid. Whatever the grid unit setup is in Unity or Unreal or whatever editor you happen to be using, Roblox, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Draw out a basic block that fits, in this case it's 64 by 64. Where is that block actually? There it is. So in the z-axis we can see that it's 64 units high and it's 64 units wide by 64 units, is that depth? And then what you can do is export that as an object file, or depending on the tools available, a Collada, DAE, FBX, whatever you've got available, and then import that shape into your 3D program. And then once you've got that into your 3D program, you now have a fixed point of reference that you can use to build all your models around. Because Unity uses meters, but your game world might have things in it that aren't necessarily scaled to meters. So for example, you might have a doorway that could be 2 meters high, but you have creatures, humanoids, whatever it is, that are taller than your door. So what you should be doing is it's a relative scaling. So you scale everything relative to the world that you are creating, but you do so keeping the base unit as your fixed unit of reference. And that way you won't necessarily get as many issues scaling and getting your sizes, object sizes right. So that's just a quick tip. Just draw out a simple block, make sure it's, you know, essentially fixed unit. So in this case it's 64 by 64, which is one major grid unit in this particular application. Export that as an object file, then import that into your 3D app of choice, and you have your fixed reference block or reference point. So that's all that is. Alright, so open another one. Nope, we don't want to change that. And you can do different sizes. So this is 128. Where is that? I'm inside. Yeah, we're inside that. So that's 128 units. So in Radiant, the grid is divided into 8 by 8 subdivisions. So in Unity you would be scaling, well, for Unity you would be scaling your objects relative to that. So that'll be a meter, so it'd be 10 by 10 for a single meter block. That's 128, so we can get rid of that one. Open AI skins, what's that? Oh, there we go. Let's testing. Hang on. Okay, back. Yeah, in this instance, this is just for testing AI skins. So each one of these is a specific game entity. And this is just so that we can see what our AIs look like. So that's okay, so we don't need that one. Open AI follow test, what's that? So I haven't looked at these in years, literally. Okay, so this is just a test map to test right. This was info player start, so that's you. Director, that's one of the AI. Murphy, Jack, so those are allies. Right, so this was a test to see if the AI would follow the player around a level. It's just a very simple setup just to test that feature. I think it was triggered. So what you would have to do is you load into the game. The AI would be standing at these spots. You activate them by using them, I think, if that's right, if I remember that correctly. So you use them, so you activate all of them, and they will then follow you around the level. In this case, it's just a simple box. So this is another thing, if you know, rather than creating a massive level and then wondering how the AI are going to behave, all you need to do is just set up a simple, oh, didn't chalk the outsides of that. All you need to do is set up a simple level map, set up a basic scenario of what you're trying to replicate. In this case, we're trying to get these AI to follow the player, and then just test it and see if it works. That way you're saving yourself a lot of time and frustration, because this will allow you to, so not only does this test whether the AI will follow you, you can also do slightly more complicated scenes where the AI is, their passage is blocked, so they might not be able to get past something. So you create a test where you can check to see how the AI behave essentially around an obstacle course, because the player can obviously jump over things. AI generally won't be able to do that in this particular instance, in this game engine at least. In more advanced engines, Unity and Unreal, it depends how the game engines function with respect to AI and the functionality of AI. But you just create small test scenes to test behavior. And it saves you a lot of development time, because you're not making things overly complicated and then finding out things aren't going to work the way that you expect them to. So always create small test maps or test scenes to check some of your basic ideas. Right, so that's that one. Open. So that's the same one. AI follow test. Yeah, that's the same one, but not complete. Open all pillars. Ooh, this is so if you've never played Return to Castle Wolfenstein, this is the export, I think, for the tomb. So is that behind me? Oh no, it's there. Look. So these are the pillars that I think were exported as a model in order to get the, yeah, these were exported and converted to an ASE model file to try and reduce the overheads in the game, because the game was getting, or the level was getting too complicated. That's pillars. Oh, and so this is one of the other things as well, is that in the same way that you can export your, well, in this particular instance, you wouldn't necessarily need to do it with Unity per se, because Unity is essentially built on the idea of using models rather than binary space partition, BSP, volumes. But what you can do is create your, where did that one go? Oh, there it is. You can create your objects and then just export your objects as a group to convert them into a model that you can then easily reuse or place. You spam the scene essentially, and it keeps your overheads down. Where is that cube? Is that it? So what was that? Oh, that's the top of one of the things. Right, so that's the pillar scene. Open. Nope. There's alter map. So that's just that. That's okay, don't need to save that. Yeah, so in this instance, so that's the model. That was made or converted from this stuff, the brushwork, the brush volumes, that were essentially exported again to keep overheads down in this particular engine. Wouldn't necessarily need to do this for Unity, but that's the model, and that allows you to spam that all over the place and or keep the overheads down. So that's that. So there's going to be a few of those. Open. Nope. Yep, same again. there's a lot of these. No. Chamber A. Oh, that's... So that's the top half. One A. So the player spawn point acts as a scale reference as well. Open. There's A1, chamber all. Okay, open chamber B. So that's the bottom half. So what's C? Don't know what that is. Open. Don't know what that is either. Let's just view filter. Cork. Yeah, don't know what that is. Open. What I'm actually looking for. The final. Right, so that's a model. The final maps or scenes that were used to. Nope. That's, what was that one? Dock. Drain. Looking for the final scenes levels that we used to compile the final published drain. What was that one? Final published mods. Right, so that's that. Open. File pillar B. So again, there's a lot of, in this particular instance, chalk. So these are all boxed up because they're going to be converted into models that can be reused after all this time. I just noticed there's a boo-boo there. But these will be exported to an ASE model that can then be used elsewhere or edited elsewhere. Open. Nope. So what was that? File pillar B, main chamber. Okay, so that's the yeah. That's that. Open main chamber, main dock. So that's another conversion again. Open main dock, misc rock. Not sure what that is. Open misc rock, pillar sections. Ooh, bad models, or it's not found the model reference. So it just brings in these origin points. So that's a bad mesh, or it's not found it. Open pillar sections, pillar base. Yeah, so again, hang on, I just need to slow the camera down, see if I can preferences. Layout, mouse, editing, 3D view. Okay, oh, that's better. Yeah, so again, another. So that's the brush volumes that have then been converted into a model, and the model has been loaded back into the editor to then reuse. So that's that one. Pillar base, pillar base, pillar base B. So that one's broken. Open pillar base C. Whoops. That one's broken. Open pillar broken, and that's the pillar. Was that exported as a model? No, didn't get round to doing that one, I don't think. But in this particular game engine, this kind of content can be expensive because it's off-grid and includes funny angles, funny cuts, and those can be a bit of an issue if they're left as brush volumes. So if you can convert these into models, in this particular instance anyway, if you can convert these into models, it makes it easier on the engine to use them. Open broken pillar, pillar broken, pillars. Yeah, they weren't converted, but that is the main chamber. I think that's the first chamber of Mage's Keep. Pillars 1, pillars 2. Oh, they're below. But this is the interesting thing, is that if you're not familiar or comfortable editing content or making content in something like Blender, if you are making content for games and you have access to a game editor that allows you to make primitive shapes and primitive objects, there's still quite a lot that you can do within the confines of those editing tools, even though they are not fully fledged 3D editing suites. You can still do some relatively complicated shapes and objects. Oops. Which you can then, because obviously in something like Roblox there'll be separate blocks, but what ideally you want to do is export them as a complete unit. How do you go down? I can't remember how to go down. Does it end? No. Okay, I must do it the long way around then. So you would use the primitive shapes, build up something that looks relatively complicated, export that to object or DAE, FBX, whatever it is, bring that into Blender, do a little bit of editing so that it becomes a single unified object instead of a bunch of separate objects. You want a single mesh and a unified mesh at that, rather than an object that's comprised of or comprised from a bunch of separate objects. And then once you've done that, you can get that back into Unity or Roblox or whatever it is that you're doing. So it then means that you are consolidating all your editor built objects into single instances that mean that your game or whatever it is that you're developing isn't having to deal with thousands and thousands of separate objects, and instead may only be dealing with a couple of hundred objects. So that's one thing you can do, is use the primitive tools that are available to you in Roblox, Unity, Unreal. Create some relatively complex shapes, export those out, and then prep them in Blender, so you don't have to do any editing, you don't have to do any complex shape creation in Blender, but you can combine everything together, prep it or optimize it for game use, and then export it back out as a mesh that you can then re-import back into your editing suite. So there are ways of creating complex shapes without necessarily needing to know how to use an application like Blender beyond the basics. And this goes for 3D Studio Max, Maya, whatever it is that you might want to use. Blended. That's pillars 2, pillar side. Okay. Pillar side, pillar top. So these, for instance, are just basic shapes, very basic shapes. I mean, I don't know what the editing capabilities are like in Roblox, for example, so you may be able to do let's just enable cork so that you may be able to do some very whoops. Oh, now how do you do that? This is not the way to do this. but it's the only way I can remember right now. But probably don't have complex editing capabilities in Unity, Roblox, Unreal. But what you can do is create complex shapes from a collection of smaller shapes. And these are the things that you export to Blender and then collate together. So in Blender, let's say for example, what we would then do is just merge parts like this into a single mesh object. Maybe add some more bits to it. I can't for the life of remember what the This is not how you do this normally, but it's all that I can remember to do. And then you'd merge, well, yeah, you could merge all of these together to form a single shape in Blender. So in your Roblox editing suite, you would make these as separate objects, get your basic shape down. So that's what we have. Export the whole lot and then combine them together to make a proper, air quotes, proper model or mesh. What's being probed? Surge. Alright, next one. Open. No, don't save that. So which one is this? Pillar top. Pillar top B. Right, so that's just a broken version. Open. Pillar top C. That's a broken version. Open. Pillar top C. Secret. Oh, so this has got some textures on it now. So what is this one? Right, so this is a secret area. I think that was exported to an ASC model as well. So again, we're trying to combine, collate, collect everything together to reduce the overheads on the game. So that's that chamber. Open secret one. Dang it. There we go. Don't remember that one. Open secret area B. Oh, A1. So that must be the top. Open secret area A1. Whoops. Secret area all. Alright, so that's everything combined. Open. So this was one of the problems with this old game tech, that when the scenes or the levels got too complicated, it would essentially blow out the engine. It would blow out the game and it wouldn't run. So you had to export a lot of content, convert it to a model, and then bring that back in as a model in order to get the game to run. B1, let's see. C1. Open. D. Is that D? Tiny little bit of rock. Open. I don't know what that was. Open. Yeah, again, missing ASE file. So it's not found the model and it's just dropped this little or is that the model? I'm not sure. Yeah, that just must be a test. Open. Right, so last one for now, and then I'll have to continue this on another. Another live stream, because there's a lot to go through. There's nothing in that one. Let's finish on something that does actually have something in it. Bob's Bits, what's that? Oh. Yeah, so this is a section of walls for a project, and these were exported to ASE, so meshes, models, that were then used in a completely different project. brush columns. And again, it's the same principle, using your basic primitives to create complex shapes that you can then export and unify as a mesh in Blender or 3D app of choice. Last one, brush columns. Here we go, we'll finish on this one, canal dock, that's got something in it. Yep, there we go, so that's one of the things I was looking for. So this is from generator, I think this is generator. So these are all originally brush volumes. So this is the entire section of the level or the scene. All this stuff in it. A lot of these are brush volumes converted into models in order to get the game to run. But we can see how we can load in a single crate and then just instance it, spam it all over the place. And those started off as primitive shapes in the editor, exported as a model, and then prepped, properly prepped in Blender or 3D Studio Max, Maya, etc., and then imported back in as an asset that can be reused as a way of optimizing the contents of the world that you are creating. Whoops. Right, we'll call it quits there. Because there's quite a few more of these to go through. Trying to find the source files for the published projects. There's a lot. Version save, version save, version save. Right, thanks for lurking, lurkers. And we'll... What do you... what did you say, Jason? Didn't even see your comment. Not seeing your comment. Aside from just joking, looks like good work. Yeah, this is just... lines and shapes everywhere. It can get a bit of... it can take a bit of getting used to. Oh, right, Counter-Strike, yeah. Yeah, the eponymous crate. What is it? Crate, oil barrel, and there's another one that is just spammed everywhere. I mean, for Counter-Strike, it would be shipping containers. So you've got shipping containers, crates, and oil barrels. Those are the three main assets that are spammed everywhere. Can't build a world without crates, oil barrels. Well, I mean, I don't know if shipping crates go back to the Second World War, which is where this is set. Wolfenstein. Yeah, that's funny. Right, okay. We'll call it quits there and see you on the next. Oh, Unreal Editor. Yeah, that's going way back. The competitor to Unreal and idTech, or what was it called back then? It wasn't idTech, it was called can't even remember what the engine was called. Was it just the Doom engine, Quake engine, Quake 3 engine? But yeah, it was either that, Quake engines, that's it, yeah. It was that or Unreal. And now, of course, the irony of id Software using Unreal Engine for all their games. Betrayed, I say, betrayed. We have been betrayed. But that's funny. Right, okay, thanks for those comments, Jason, and thanks for lurking, lurkers, and there's a lot more of these to go through, so I'll probably be doing a couple of hangouts, just running through these, just to keep the TikTok gods happy. Right, see you on the next one. Yoink, where's the thing gone? Oh, there it is, and live. Right, see you on the next one.